Thanks for sticking around. I mean, Doc, you said it the night that it happened, and I just about expressing our well wishes and our thoughts and our prayers to the family and families of the survivors and things. And I tend to stay away from that sort of stuff because when this happened, because I knew what I would see, I turned social media off. And I know that you've come across some of this stuff, and it's just sickening. And I think I don't think these folks that frankly sicken me with their opinions about how this all went down, like the guy in Texas, the volunteer firefighter in Texas. That why would you tweet support for this dude in today's? If you're gonna, it doesn't make any sense why that would happen. This is a universally loathed act at this point. So here's my why I stay away from stuff. I don't think that they're being ugly because they're evil or thinking about it particularly hard. It's tough. It's a tough thing. This show, folks, you saw, if you followed the Facebook post, you saw that on this show, we were talking about whether the Confederate flag should be taken down. And we're definitely going to discuss some of that throughout what we're talking about because it's another one of these issues. But it's a deflection. And, Doc, you agree 100%. Gun control, in a situation like this, a gun control conversation, a Confederate flag conversation, a Christian conversation. Those are deflections from what really happened here. And it's my view on this that we do it. You and I are fairly open-minded guys, I'd like to think. We're educated. We think about these things and we're sincere. And yet even you and I had a problem in dealing with this question, this racism question head on, because it's tough. It's tough to get into. It's easier to argue about the flag or the Confederate flag and whatever. That's easy because then you and I can snipe at each other and we're like, oh, history, oh, whatever. The racism that leads to an act of hate like this is tough. Why is it so hard for us to deal with?
And I'm going to, keep in mind that, most Americans are mutts. We're a mix of something.
Yeah.
And Lefty has a tendency to be, he's, what are you, part Norwegian and then the other part of you is German?
German, yep.
So,
I'm about as white as a polar bear.
So he's about as white as you can get. And you can tell just by my coloration, I'm, darker. And the bottom line is we have gone from being able to talk about race and being able to discuss what the problems are. And of course, I look at Martin Luther King, right? That guy had a giant set. I mean, can you imagine walking into these places and knowing that you're not going to fight back? That takes some guts. I couldn't do it. I honest to God, I couldn't do it, right? So we've gone from being able to talk about race to creating such an environment. And I don't know if you want, I like to blame the media for a lot of stuff. So I blame the media. I also like to blame left-wing loons. Lefty likes to blame right-wing loons. Problem is what we have today is a culture where you can't say anything. What you say, you either have to be so hateful that everybody's going to, you're going to
gang up on you. Yeah.
Or you don't say anything at all. And the problem is if you make a misstep, if you don't understand the issue, if you don't get where the other side's coming from, asking the questions gets you in trouble. People crucify you. I've experienced that. We've had people on the show being crucified for stating what they believe, either whether they understood it or not, whatever the reason is, and then they get death threats. The problem is we're not allowed to talk about it anymore. Now, I can tell you straightforward, I've been the victim on more than one occasion of straightforward hatred and bias. In one case, I think it was a case of racism. All right? But the bottom line is we've all been there. I'm sure Lefty has been a victim of bias at some point in his career.
If I have, I couldn't tell you. And because this is what I'll say about that. My experience has been as a white guy who was born in South Dakota and then moved to Iowa when he was 6.
And we hate those South Dakotans.
Yeah, well, you should.
So,
no,
but the bottom line is we're no longer allowed to talk about it. It is so perilous for regular people to be able to talk about anything, right? We have black neighbors, right? Those neighbors have been there for 3 years, and for the first time, they're playing with the white neighbor kids for the first time this summer. Well, what took them 3 years to start playing with the neighbor kids? Is it us or is it them? Right? Mm-hmm. Can I even feel safe going like, well, hold on, you've been a member of our community here for 3 years. Why now start playing with opposite race people? Opposite race, but you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line. There's only been a couple of people I've been able to have an honest discussion about race relations with. One's Benji, mm-hmm. and the other one is a dear friend of mine I haven't heard from in a long time, James English. But those are the only 2 people that I ever felt free enough to go, well, hold on, what is going on here? I don't understand. And if you don't have understanding, you can't have peace. You know that, and I know that. And so what you have is, and admittedly, there is a group of people that make a ton of money off of stirring up race relations. That just happens. All right. And the bottom line is, that's what makes the news. So why?
I'm gonna differ with you a little bit in your approach, because I am not so certain that we've ever really been able to talk about this stuff. I'm not so certain that we've ever really been able to, as a country, discuss without recrimination the legacy of our racist past, the Civil War we fought largely over it, and then the legacy of trying to fix it. I do believe that we have been making an effort to repair some of that damage. That we've been making an honest effort for at least the last 100 years to repair some of that damage. And I would paraphrase an interview, something that Chris Rock said in an interview, I believe, with Frank Rich in Vulture. If you read this. Yeah. He said that he feels lucky that he's living in the generation with the best white people that have ever lived. Now, yes. That's not saying too much for white people in the grand scheme of history, but it's true. I think that we are getting better as a country. I think that we're all getting better racially speaking, that we're improving, we're learning how to live together in a lot of different kinds of ways. And then something like that, this kind of snaps us back to reality that there's still issues. And this is what makes it tough for me. This is what makes it really tough for me, because I am at the sort of like the oldest end of the millennial generation, right? I'm kind of like 1 or 2 years on the millennial side, but I'm on the cusp of not being a millennial necessarily. And the stereotypes, these young kids that are self-absorbed and blah, blah, blah. Maybe we'll get back to that. Or do you want me to finish the thought?
No, we'll get back to it.
Okay.
So when we get back, we're going to have Lefty finish his thought, and hopefully it will be a good one. Most of the time it is.
No promises.
Every once in a while he lets one loose that doesn't smell that good.
No promises.
And then we're going to start talking about the Confederate flag and how it comes into this entire thing, because this shooting is not very simple, not at all. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back right after this break.